We're also being recorded, and Robyn will be right back as she's grabbing something to be able to show everyone here. But while there she is, perfect. Okay. So welcome to the Your Health Made Simple webinar series. My name is Tracy Gowler, and I am the owner of Your Health Made Simple. I help women over 40 improve the way they live with Hashimoto's through structured healing programs. Another focus of mine is to also highlight to women that they need to be a priority. If they're not, they can't look after those that are important to them. So I started this webinar series to provide education about additional modalities to help the Hashimoto's and autoimmune healing journey, and to provide actual healing stories from my clients, because healing is possible. So every week I tell you how amazing my guests are, and they are absolutely amazing, and this week's guest is no exception. So Robyn Maitland grew up in a military family, lived around the world, and relocated to Colorado from Chicago several years ago. I did that too. There's something about this place out here, right? There really is. She has a passion for art and outdoors and travel of health and the body's remarkable ability to heal itself, and loves to educate and inspire others to live their best lives. She's the regional territory manager in Colorado for Microbiome Labs, the gut health specialists, and yes, they are. And prior to joining the team 2 years ago, she had an extensive 20-year career in the natural product industry as a sales representative and educator for many reputable brands, including Highlands Homeopathic Company and Organic India. Robyn has had great success applying Microbiome Labs to products to support her own health journey, as healing her gut was a missing link to her own recovery. She is grateful to extend her knowledge to others and to be part of the Microbiome Labs family, a mission-based company committed to making vibrant health accessible for all. So welcome, Robyn, and I can't tell you how excited I am that we were able to make this work, because you have so much to share with everyone that sees this webinar, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, I would like to let you all know that Robyn has so graciously offered to stick around after this session to answer a few questions on Facebook. So if you have some questions, please hang around. So let's dive in to all of this wonderful information. And let's start with you. If you don't mind, tell me a little bit about Microbiome Labs, what you love about them, and how you ended up working for them.
Okey-doke. Well, thank you so much, and good morning. And it'd be nice to start my day like that every single day.
Right?
And look out, world. That'd be so awesome.
Right.
I am so grateful to be here, and that we've made a connection through Microbiome Labs. What a gift.
I know, right?
It's amazing. And I also love that we can sit and talk and organically banter. There's obviously so much great stuff to share, and if we had so much more time, we could go through even more. But my background, like you said, 20 years in the natural health industry, and our founders, Dr. Tom Bain and Karan Krishnan, who is a microbiologist and also a virologist, so talk about scoring big time during a pandemic, to have those leaders at the helm. Dr. Tom Bain is a chiropractor, functional medicine doctor, and they're both also from Chicago. But basically, I was able to join the fold because I met them previously in the natural products industry through a myriad of ways. But I also would then bump into Karan at health symposiums over the years. So we became acquaintances, and there was a point in time where I reached out and I was looking for a change, and it wasn't an immediate opportunity, but I was able to, within a few months, be able to join the team. So I'm very indebted to Karan, especially on so many levels, but for bringing me to one of the greatest companies I've worked with in all of these years of my career. And in addition to that, I've had my own health journey of I'm in my 40s now, my late 40s, and I know I'll be working with you on some hormonal issues, but in my mid-30s, I also had my own diagnoses of endometriosis and other health issues. And so I went on my own journey of trying to heal myself holistically, which I had some pretty great success. But it's interesting because when you mentioned the homeopathic company I was with and Organic India and these other companies that have different products, that contributed to my healing journey at different turns. And I feel like the healing of the gut and all the connection to the gut piece is now the new layer that was intended to show up in my life. So that's very cool stuff.
Yeah.
So that's basically a little bit of my background as to how I came to be with the team 2 years now in Colorado. I'm currently stationed in Thornton. And in addition to that, a couple quick differentiators just about Microbiome Labs, because there's a lot of probiotic companies out there. It gets very confusing, of course, like what's what, who's who, and
Right.
how do you apply these things? Um, in general, we're about 7 years old, maybe a little bit, 7.5, but we're a younger company, but we're definitely on the cusp of a lot of growth right now. Every department's been expanding, from our clinical learning and development team to international to marketing. Our sales team, we added 10 reps within about 6 months. So we're definitely on this trajectory, and we've been expanding quite a bit, which is exciting. And also during this particular strange year, our products, especially the gut piece, being linked to healthy immunity has been really imperative. In addition, though, Tom and Karan, they wanted to create a product line that we say physicians exclusive. It's basically practitioner exclusive. So we do not sell to third-party websites. You're not going to find us on an Amazon or something like that. So in order to be able to have an account with us and sell the products, people need to be licensed in the healthcare field in some capacity. That helps us just kind of weed out a lot, and we want it to be a special type of brand. We also have pharmaceutical grade products, and we're really big into science and research and data and studies. And so that's another thing that I think sets us apart, is there's a big investment in investing in studies and science so we can back our claims, because there are a lot of wonderful products out there on every level, but not being able to always come to the table. It'd be kind of like the organic certification or non-GMO certification. Certainly doesn't mean that people who don't have those certifications, they don't have wonderful, clean products, but it helps to be able to delve deeper and to look at the science behind things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel, I'm just going to say it. You're probably not going to step out and toot your own horn like that, but I feel these products are the best out there. Like, and they keep coming out with more and more, and we'll talk about some of them soon. And Robyn's going to get into the different products here in a minute, but I have been so impressed with this company, and had the opportunity to go last year to this seminar that they put on last fall, and it was an amazing wealth of information. Like, I've never dealt with a company that shares this much information, but not just sharing, they have the knowledge to share, and the people, the connections with people to help us do our job so much better, so very impressed with this company. So gut health is a topic that I would love to chat about with you. It's really at the root of everyone's health, and you have an amazing gut protocol with some amazing products. So would you mind walking us through your products and how they support gut health?
Yes. And like you said, we're expanding our product line. So when I started, I think we have about 13 products now. So it's still not a huge product line, but there's a lot that comes with each of them. And many of the products, depending on what you're trying to tackle, are also interchangeable.
Yeah.
There might be like a foundational, like Megaspore probiotic is our flagship probiotic. I'll talk about that first. And also, what are spore-based bacteria? That's the kind of probiotics we offer, are spore-based bacteria. So what the heck are those? How do they work? But we might have that as the staple for a lot of circumstances and protocols, and then add in a different combination of our other products. We are expanding that product line, like you said. I know at the end, if we have some time, we want to touch on our BiomeFX, which is a stool test kit that we launched in the last maybe 9 months, and it's quite a beast, which is exciting.
Yes.
But the gut piece, of course, is something that we are the gut specialists. That's really where we have our focal point. And going back many years when Karan was studying bacteria, I believe the story goes that he was actually hired by another company to research what are the best probiotics out there before he launched, before Microbiome Labs, the inception. And, he looking at is it the combination of strains that makes the biggest impact? Is it the billions of CFUs colonizing forming units, or the number of those guys that you consume that make the biggest impact on your body? And in that journey, he came across spore-based bacteria, which is very different. So we'll talk about that. But he ended up launching his own company with this really amazing critters out there. So Megaspore probiotic, like I said, when I started, this was our flagship probiotic. It currently still is. And we have another product called Megaquinone K27, which I don't know if we'll have time at the end, but maybe we can have a part 2 conversation too. But Megaquinone K27 was our second flagship, and we kept expanding our product line. So I don't get to always touch on all of them, but they're all wonderful products. Now, spore-based bacteria, this is fascinating. When I started, I said to Karan, I said, so I'm really confused because we have this 5-year shelf-stable probiotic. And having been in the industry previously I did rep some pretty amazing probiotic brands.
Yeah.
And they were always in dark amber glass in the refrigerator. You know, they were like super expensive, high end, like the Cadillac of the probiotic world. And so I said to him, I said, first of all, how is this possible? And so we talked about spores. And ultimately in Megaspore Biotic, we use 5 different bacillus strains. That's a type of bacteria. And I was told, you know, they're very resilient, they're very intelligent, they've been on the planet for millions of years. And I thought that was a little preposterous. But if you follow us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram, about a year ago, I saw a post on our Instagram that was talking about one of our spores. And a university in California actually found this bacteria in a honeybee fossilized in amber 25 million years ago. And they revived it.
That's cool.
I've never told you that, I don't think.
No, that's insane.
It's insane. So when we talk about how resilient they are, they've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, but before we bottled these 5 bacteria and we combined 4 billion units of 5 different bacillus strains, before we bottled them, our founders have a proprietary way that they create an environment that the bacteria sense that they have to protect themselves. And so they go back into spore form. And the spore ultimately is, it's an endospore. It's like a seed-like coating. So it's a really tough exterior. So a lot of people think a spore is mushroom, they think it's all these other things.
Right.
But the spore is actually this tough outer coating, and that's what makes them very, very resistant. So when they go back into spore form, they're hence protected in this bottle.
Yeah.
I don't know the perfect way in which they do that. I kind of picture like they roll up like an armadillo or like a roly-poly.
Are those little potato bugs?
Yes, I do a lot of visualizations. These are like space invaders in my body. There's a lot of stuff going on. It helps me understand a very inexplicable microcosm of a world.
Right.
They go back into spore form, and that's why they can be stable, shelf stable for 5 years. They're very resistant to heat and light exposure. So a lot of times when probiotics are being even just from the warehouse and then they're being shipped places, there's a high risk of them dying off just because of exposure to a lot of different environmental factors. So that's tough to even keep those critters alive. And then once you consume probiotics or bacteria, the harsh environment to get into the body, which is 98 degrees Fahrenheit, you have gastric system, acids, bile, stomach acid. It's so tough to get through all of that. A lot of bacteria is likely to die off then too. So with that tough outer coating, we have a very high survivability, and that's one reason why it's very potent. But Karan, again, being big into the science and research piece, he wanted to actually study that. So what is the survivability of our spores? And he found that 99.9%, so nearly 100%, actually survive the entry point to the body. So you get what you pay for, number one, which is amazing.
It's incredible, right? Because the other bacteria I've heard numbers upwards of 80%, maybe even higher, die before they make it.
A very, very high percent. So we look at like, okay, there's 5 of our bacillus strains, 4 billion units, nearly 100% of those guys survive, which is amazing. And then they're in the body for 10 days sometimes, so over a week, up to 3 weeks sometimes. So they're not in and out quickly. And they are transient. I'm going to get into this. And so they do different things, but they're also biphasic. So they will also go in and out of spore form, and that's their intelligence piece. Based on what they encounter, based on if they have to protect themselves, they do a whole bunch of different things, which we'll talk about next, which is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
But then Karan also was like, hey, let's look at the category leaders on the market, the top selling probiotics, the best sellers, the ones I used to put a lot of money into, including yogurt companies, and let's see how much living bacteria there is. And unfortunately, in some of the top brands, we found about 0% living bacteria. Others was around 2 to 5, and the most was around 20. So what was interesting is I was told you can actually have some benefit from dead bacteria, even in the beginning, maybe a pH shift, or there's some other benefit your body gleans from that. But that's likely why a lot of people say I had this amazing probiotic and it just kind of leveled out. I plateaued, or I wasn't getting as much benefit over time. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, yeah.
So when he and I talked, he said, think about this. If you have to coddle your bacteria in the dark in glass and it can't even be at room temperature, it will never survive that entry point. And then he did the research to prove that's true. And that demystified everything I'd known about probiotics for
Yeah.
like 15 years in my last industry. I was
Mm.
like, what? Oh my gosh. So you want your probiotic to arrive alive, and we have that. And then again, these spores are in the body for a period of time. And when I say that they're biphasic, you can read a little bit more about our products or these bacteria on our website, microbiomelabs.com. But the 5 different bacteria have different healing agents that they will offer the body. So every single person has their microbiome, which is the bacteria that's in their body, on their body, and your gut microbiome. Everyone's is different. It's like a snowflake.
Right.
Nobody has yours, no one has mine. And we also don't know what's on board. I've
Right.
met people who are the cleanest eaters, but they traveled more than the next guy or have more pets per se, and maybe more parasitic activity.
Yeah.
So we can never gauge like what's going on, what's in there. But what's really cool is that once the spores are in the body, again, they're there for a while too. The biphasic part is, and this is how intelligent these guys are, is that when they encounter different pathogenic bacteria, E. coli, parasites, whatever may be on board, our spores will come out of spore form. So I picture at that point they flower. Again, these are my visualizations. And they will actually start to release different healing agents. So again, you can read online about all the different things they offer, but some of our spores offer B vitamins, lutein, lactic acid, and
Mm.
one of our strains called Bacillus subtilis we use in several other products. It's very potent. This particular strain will actually release 12 natural antibiotics, especially when it encounters pathogenic bacteria, and it aims to break that down and also will help reduce ammonia in the body by up to about 30%. So what's fascinating is not only are these spores uniquely working to recondition, and we call Megaspore the reconditioner of your own gut,
Yeah.
but they're also creating an inhospitable environment. And so we start to naturally see different things from parasites to bacteria pathogens start to die off.
Yeah.
So there may be a period of time when people start to apply Megaspore biotic. We always recommend that people apply it slowly. It's called titrating up. And we have directions on our bottle on our website.
Yep.
That you would start with 1 capsule every other day for a week, and then you would titrate up to 1 capsule daily, week 2.
Yeah.
If you tolerate that, you'd go to 2 capsules daily, weeks 3 and 4. And that's just because, again, they're very potent and we don't know what someone is dealing with. And we also don't know if they're going to have a little bit of die off or detox, which is very common.
Yes.
Typically, it's just pretty benign symptoms for a few days. And it's typically is loose stools, a little extra gassiness or bloating. Some people will say maybe a little fatigue or headache, but it's typically a few days, nothing too overwhelming. And then if we say if someone's a little bit uncomfortable, then titrate down to a little bit of a lesser dose.
Yeah.
But ultimately the spores are in there working, they're kicking butt. And so let's not unplug on them while they're on the job.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's it. Eventually they go back into spore form and then we defecate them. So that's kind of like our whole thing is survivability. They're there for a period of time. Their aim is to recondition your gut for you.
Right.
And we see like amazing benefits from this.
Oh, no, it is amazing. And yeah, we can talk about that later, but every client that I have, I require, if you're in my programs, you're using not just this, but the other 2 products I feel that Robyn's going to be talking about next, which is part of their total gut health protocol. So yeah, this product is amazing.
I know, it's like, I could talk about it forever. So the Megaspore biotic is the flagship again. And when I started, I was given a list of like 30 or 40 different conditions or ailments where Megaspore by itself was indicated to be helpful.
Yes.
We're not saying cures, of course, but just certainly helpful. Now we have seen there's like your Alzheimer's, Parkinson's category because there's an emerging gut-brain connection conversation we're learning more about, which we're scratching the surface on this whole topic, which is crazy. You get your skin condition, allergy, eczema, psoriasis people. Then there's also the whole autoimmune population, so Hashimoto's, Lyme's, Crohn's. Again, these are people we hear from. These are people we see some success stories with. And then I kind of feel like it's a miscellaneous bucket, but SIBO patients, C. diff patients, parasites, candida, UTIs, rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff. So, but because this did such a great job, not only does the spores come in, and then they start to break down those pathogenic bacteria, the bad bugs or critters, and they help boot them out. But then we also started seeing that there are specific keystone strains that start to colonize and flourish. Yeah. Bifido and Akkermansia, and again, you can read online more about some of those. But the reason why we launched the next 2 products is that the founders were like, well, now how do we feed those good guys? We have all these bacteria that are flourishing, and we want to ramp those guys up and pump them up. So what do we do about that?
Right.
So what we did next was we launched our Mega Prebiotic. And I wanted to also say briefly, when I talk about how intelligent the bacteria have a way of communicating with each other, which I want to learn a lot more about. It's called quorum sensing. So literally our bacteria in the system, it's like they'll almost scan other bacteria and determine, are you my friend or are you my foe? And that's how smart they are. And if they sense they're in danger, they will go back into spore form and protect themselves. So you can actually get their spores oftentimes too with certain types of antibiotics. They can be resistant to that environment.
Yeah.
You can open Megaspore and sprinkle the powders, the spores in beverage or food or cooler warm temperatures. So oftentimes we'll work with little children as well.
Interesting. That's
right?
Fabulous. Yes. And they do have a recommended protocol for young children as well.
Right.
So
Typically ages 2 and up and 3 and up. So Mega Prebiotic, if you can see that, there you go. So the Mega Prebiotic and the Mega Mucosa are the next 2 products that we launched, and we call this our Total Gut Restoration Protocol. It's roughly around a 3-month protocol, but it's not a perfect science. So we just put together, I do have a sell sheet, there's information on our website about how to apply this over 3 months, but depending on what you're targeting, I mean, everyone's very different. Some people have to go much slower with Megaspore and titrate down, what have you. But the premise on this was, again, let's target and feed those keystone strains. Now, when we launched the prebiotic, I like to tell people the ingredients because a lot of people said, well, why the heck did you assemble those ingredients? And the reason why is our founders, who are big into research, they did a lot of work to try and come up with what they call the first ever precision prebiotic because it targets and really focuses on those keystone strains. So they had to look for the best combination of food. And that's why we assembled these 3 ingredients. This is a powder, and it has 3 different oligosaccharides in it. So it's they're not the pure source, but these ingredients are derived from the source. And again, I learned something interesting with this whole thing. It's like a chicken or egg moment. One of the oligosaccharides, it comes from non-GMO organic green and gold kiwi fruit, including the rind. The other 2, one is from RBST-free cow's milk. And so there are no dairy proteins by the time that we have just the oligosaccharide. But again, I'm going to get back to that. So clean source of dairy, but no dairy proteins. The other is non-GMO organic corn cob, not the kernel. The kernel typically is associated to more of the allergies. But again, at first people said, well, why would you source from dairy or corn? And that comes up a lot. And here's what's interesting. If you know that your client or patient or yourself are allergic to any of those ingredients, then this is not your product. This is not the ticket that would fit you the best. We would say maybe skip this step or use organic fruit and vegetable fiber blend, a prebiotic of your choice. It just won't have the same combo of food that we assembled. So you have to know your audience with this. But some people who are just intolerant or sensitive to these ingredients, they give it a whirl and they go, yeah, it wasn't the best. Other people fare very well. I actually sell a lot of prebiotic. And the reason why is because when people take Megaspore for several weeks and they recondition their gut and healing begins to happen, which oftentimes is linked to leaky gut, perforations, the gut lining and things that leak into the body, and then our body responds and causes inflammatory response. We get food sensitivities, etc. That's the leaky gut or endotoxemia issues. When you start to recover that for weeks, then we start to see that some people's food sensitivities and intolerances improve. Some totally resolve. And so that's kind of the trick to this product is you have to know, can I apply this or not? And let me just give it a whirl. And if you can't, then just don't work with it.
Right.
And we're going to be launching, by the way, a prebiotic. It does have a little bit of a fruit extract and also a little stevia for flavoring, but we are launching a prebiotic unflavored capsule, and we're going to have both versions available.
Fabulous.
Yeah, some people don't like a powder and some people don't like the sweetness, but that's coming.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do if you're going to take just Megaspore Biotic, we recommend 6 to 8 months for really nice reconditioning. Again, you may get benefit really quickly. You may have a little die-off for detox or none at all. So we just don't know. But that is most ideal. And then if after 6 months, you just for cost or ease, if you're willing to do a maintenance dose, we would say even if you can do this 2 days a week is great, because remember, they stay in your system for quite some time. And people have a propensity to eat junkiest on the weekends, so that's a great time. If they're willing to pop some Megaspore on the weekends and just maintain it, that's awesome.
Right.
The reason why too is we don't graduate on this planet. So we get re-bombarded every day with our microbiome and we do all this great reconditioning work and people go, I'm good, right? I can just stop, but we don't graduate. People then get stressed or COVID hits and you get really stressed. or
Yeah.
you have to travel, or you eat something junky, or people drink, smoke, get put on antibiotics, etc. You
Right.
know, glyphosates.
And
That's a
would
whole.
you recommend if somebody does go a round of antibiotics or has to go a round of antibiotics? Because we would never say don't do it. There are times when antibiotics are necessary. Would you go back up to Megaspore every day?
Interesting you say this. I was a few months into the job. I had to take antibiotics. There was no way around it. I skirted it the first time and I had to.
Yeah.
And I called Karan and I was kicking and screaming, saying, "What do I do? I'm so distressed." And he said, "You know what? It happens sometimes." So this was my protocol. I'm not saying it is a protocol, but I took my round of antibiotics and I took Megaspore. I took another round of antibiotics. I took more Megaspore. For me, it was 2 caps and 2 caps. That's what I was doing. And I said, well, should I space it out? Hours later, he said, you can wait, you can take it with, because again, they're very resistant. Now, I can't say they're resistant to all antibiotics, but the majority of things, they again protect themselves.
Yeah.
So my aim was, I don't want to have a candida overgrowth. I want to get through this without any kind of itching or discomfort.
Right.
And I did that the entire time. And then when I was finished, I actually was great. And then I started having a little bit of discomfort, itching. I was like, oh, great. And so the prebiotic and mucosa, I continued taking Megaspore. And then the prebiotic and the mucosa, I started adding those in. And within just a few days, the itching had completely resolved.
Got it.
Amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
so it is and I just want to mention really quick, it is a problem with a lot of my clients that when you have to take antibiotics because the body is in such a state of distress or dysfunction that antibiotics can throw them into a yeast infection state.
Yeah.
And so, but with anybody, not just my clients, because one round of antibiotics can upset your microbiome for up to a year.
Actually, some can be even up to 2 years.
Yeah.
Depending on the type of antibiotic.
Right. And so the point of taking the Megaspore is to give your system something to help it retain its strength, the microbiome, its good balance of bacteria, but also allow the antibiotics to work for you. Yeah.
Right. So that is exactly,
Yeah.
it's how do you, because I was in that predicament, and mine was something that it was just something that was like a nodule on my back. It was something that I just tried to do other things with it, and it just got to a point where you don't want something to be a systemic infection, and so you're in a real predicament. What do I do here? And so I was very distressed about it, but it was an amazing experience in a way to be able to be new into the fold and also be a guinea pig, I guess,
Right.
and to be able to see how potent they were.
Right.
So if you're going to be doing a 3-month total gut restoration protocol, ultimately you're stacking these products. So month 1 would be you add in the Megaspore and again titrate up. And then month 2, hopefully ideally you're taking 2 Megaspore a day. And then you start adding in, week 1 is a half scoop of pre, and then week 2 is a full scoop of prebiotics. So ultimately 2 Megaspore and then a full scoop of prebiotic, and you're feeding the good guys, right?
Right.
And again, we add this, by the way, later on. A prebiotic is counterintuitive because it's before. But the analogy I came up with, imagine you have a party and all these people show up to the party and you want the majority of them there. Well, but there's some unruly kids in the mix. So you want to keep those guys out, sets the party straight, and then the doorbell rings and more people you love show up to the party. That's like the keystone strains flourishing.
Right.
Then you want the food delivery service to come later.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can be feeding the good, bad, ugly. I mean, we're a big mix. We're a petri dish of everything.
Right.
And so we want to selectively feed the good guys. That's the point of this guy.
We don't want to feed the bad party goers.
No, we do not. The unruly kids that like to trash the house. We don't want them to go.
Right.
So month 1 and then month 2 are these 2 products stacked. And then you would loop in month 3, you would add in our Mega Mucosa.
Yeah.
So Megaspore is a reconditioner of a healthy gut. Mega Prebiotic is a reinforcer of a healthy gut, feeding good guys. And then the Mega Mucosa is the rebuilder of a healthy gut, the 3 R's. And Mega Mucosa is one of my very favorite products. It has also a powder. In this particular product, we have a lining that lines our intestines called the intestinal mucosal gut barrier. So it's a gut lining. And it should be thick and velvety, but it gets worn very thin for lots of different reasons. And we want to rebuild that. It's a filter for a lot of things.
Right.
So we add our Mega Mucosa in, and it has 3 main ingredients. It has a bovine serum derived immunoglobulins. Now, it's not for the vegan people, but at the same time, people who are dairy free love this. It doesn't have dairy, lactose, casein, or whey. So those immunoglobulins are kind of like the function of colostrum in its rebuild and immune support. but like a dairy-free version of colostrum ultimately. So the immunoglobulins are going to help with a little die-off, a little detox, immune support, and then we add amino acids and polyphenols that are really part of the thickening agent that help get in there and rebuild the gut lining.
Yeah.
And so when we apply these 3 products, Megaspore is going to be month 1, Megaspore Mega Pre month 2, Megaspore Mega Pre and Mega Mucosa month 3.
Right.
We also have some organic flavoring and then some stevia in this product. It is also powder. And the reason why we have to boost the flavor profile of this, because I have asked, is because the amino acids are so astringent, it would just not be palatable. So it's a bit sweet, you know, it's one of those things. If in doubt, somebody just cannot work with the Mega Mucosa, we have a product called Mega IgG 2000, which has the same immunoglobulins, capsule form, unflavored. It just doesn't have the amino acids and polyphenols. So they're not apples to apples, but certainly this can still be very beneficial. You can always take this in lieu of, if you need to, a little bit of a different profile. And then and then backtracking a little bit, you and I have talked a lot about IgG.
Yeah.
I just have to mention it briefly because it's still one of my favorite products. And typically if someone's taking Megaspore and they have a little bit of that die-off or detox, IgG 2000 is fantastic. It basically kind of neutralizes some toxins, helps to bind them up, helps to expel them out of the body. So our southern rep where I grew up down in Florida, she calls it the biscuit that stops with the gravy, which is hilarious. So I tell people sometimes, you know, if you tell people it's the biscuit, they'll remember the biscuit.
Right.
But I use this, I take this anyway. If you have been exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, when we all could travel much more, but you went to an area with more pollutants.
Right.
If you're going to eat kind of junky one day and you cheat on have your burger Friday, which I know you never do.
No.
I do a little too much. And, you know, and then I just found out recently too, we were talking to someone on our team who's more of an expert in IgG, and he was saying that he with another company he worked with, he was saying that he put IgG in some water, and, you know, you could open the capsules, and I told you this yesterday, he swishes around and it helps to bind up bacteria, cruddy bacteria in the body, and you can swish around your mouth, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So I take this every day personally, just because we're always exposed to toxins, but I'll increase it. And you can always have clinical dosing of IgG if you have really intense cases, like heavy exposures to things and what have you. And you were asking yesterday if it binds to metals, and the answer is no. It doesn't bind to metals.
Okay.
But we also talked yesterday about the difference between a charcoal, which is very binding, and IgG. IgG will selectively bind pathogenic bacteria and not bind everything up. And you and I were talking about how we both will take charcoal for different things for reasons, but it's going to grab everybody, likely. And so it could even grab spores. It could grab the good guy. So this guy is more selective, you know, but there's a time and place for both. It's not to be substituted.
So as we were talking yesterday too, I have a lot of clients that have MTHFR. Now, if we're dealing with metals, obviously the charcoal is the thing we have to go after. And there's other protocols that we may have to work with to help get rid of metals in the body. However, I do take the IgG daily because I do have MTHFR and detox is not great in my system. This helps a lot.
That's fantastic, because I'm going to be doing some testing myself and seeing my lymphatic system. And you know, I was speaking to a lady yesterday who does thermography and like breast tests that are without radiation. And I've been doing that for years. And I was telling her, oh, I got my dry brush and all these things, and I'm really helping my lymphatic system. And she said, well, that's awesome. You're stirring everything up, but are you expelling it and detoxing it?
Exactly.
So and I'll see where I was from a year ago, because I've been doing some gut rebuild and IgG. We'll see.
Right. And I think if you have a system that detoxes well, that's great. Do all that stuff. But the IgG product might be great for people that maybe don't know if they detox well, or if they know they don't detox well. You can do all those great things we need to, but if you're not taking something to help mop it up, it's just hanging in there and not serving you.
Right. And in addition to that, because it's great for helping with the gut rebuild anyway, and it's also fantastic for immune support. I mean, the immune support conversation is massive right now.
Yes.
It's like the conversation besides all the 40 other topics that we're trying to get. And so that is the other thing, is that, you know, I wanted to share this, and we'll go through a couple more quick products. And you and I have talked about this, I think. I always understood, or I was always told, you know, healthy gut, obviously, like we said, it's linked to the gut-brain connection. It's linked to skin stuff. It's linked to all these things. I've been thinking lately, is it linked to, is there anything it's not linked to? But like very minor ear discomfort that comes and goes. And I thought, is this the only thing that's not linked to gut health? Or maybe it is, I don't know, right?
Right.
But the immune function piece, I wasn't fully understanding how. I was like, okay, well, we know that you want to be able to have the greatest digestion you can for detox, and there's different things that are linked to healthy gut with immunity.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is we were on a team call weeks ago, and we were talking with our founders, and we were talking about how the amount of sanitizing, over sterilizing we've all done
Yeah.
during this year out of necessity. And even our founders were saying, you know, we don't have normally Clorox wipes in our house, but
Right.
they've been doing that too.
Right.
Between that and social distancing, it has greatly diminished our microbial diversity. We
Oh, yeah.
want a whole mix of bacteria because scientists link microbial diversity to healthy immune function.
Yeah.
And when you keep diminishing that, it's almost like putting your immune system in the red. And then we're all trying to figure out this new world, and do I liberate? What do I do
Right.
with a suppressed immune system in a way, or
Yeah.
compromised, I guess.
Yep.
And that's not great, you know. So we want to basically heal the gut, but also really boost and increase that diversity,
Right.
which you can also do that through putting your hands in the soil, and hugs and pets and loved ones
Pets.
and green leafy vegetables. But a lot of people aren't getting that. And then we're going out in this world trying to have our immune system be able to ward off or tackle these viruses.
Right.
And so there's so many important things to do. I feel for people who do live alone, my aging mom who's in Florida by herself. Like, there are people who are in circumstances that they cannot help. But
Yes.
you are very blessed if you can hug your partner,
Yeah.
if you have children around, if you have pets around.
Yeah.
It's a good segue to talk about Phytospore in a second.
Yeah.
But, you know, all of those things, but then on top of that, if you can supplement with the right bacteria and the right products, that's
Yeah.
going to help you tremendously.
Yeah.
And for what we're going to be entering the winter and next year, it's imperative.
It is imperative. And you know, we didn't talk about the masks, and the masks are needed. However, it is like a petri dish of your own stuff, right? And
Here is going to be here.
well, right. And
Right.
so, and then you're constantly breathing that in. You're not getting that fresh air that your body's expecting. So it is also reducing the health of your immune system. So as good as it is to help, it's also not helping. So this is another reason for these products, right? And you got to make sure that you, in your home, at least in your cars, you're exposing yourself to, like, you don't want it so clean that you're not getting exposure to some bacteria, things to help continue to boost your immune system.
Yeah. My last job, I was a national educator, and I traveled all over the place every other week. And I don't even know, I don't know when I got sick during that time, really. Probably because I was exposed to so much, so
Yeah.
many people, so many trainings, so many handshakes, hugs, airplanes. I mean, it was crazy.
Right.
So I'm in a different situation working from home, and you know, we mask up when we go out. That's our preference, but not when I'm in a car or taking a walk.
Right.
We're definitely doing our diligence and trying to be conscientious of ourselves and others, but at the same time, still trying to figure out,
Yeah.
you know, how do we increase our own diversity too? There's a
Right.
lot of different things we're trying to do as well.
Right.
So,
So those three, the gut health protocol products, if you guys are interested, are the best to help do that she's showing you right now. And then that IgG product, also a fabulous product. And yes, yeah,
IgG. So
yeah.
do you want to just segue over to Phytospore for a quick second?
Let's talk Phytospore.
So
Yes.
what do you have to say or ask about that? And I'll tell you about some things. This is all in alignment, obviously, with the diversity piece.
Right. So I remember on Instagram seeing this little post about, oh, Phytospore is coming. And I can't tell you how excited I was, because I have a baby, a very large 4-legged baby that has really had a lot of like groin area skin irritation and infection. And when we got him, that started shortly after we got him. And I was taking him to the vet quite frequently, and he was getting put on antibiotics every time, and I was being told it was environmental, and I'm like, yeah, BS, right? Because of what I know. That's not just going to happen unless you've got gut health issues, but how do you support your 4-legged babies, right? So I started researching, but the Phytospore wasn't out at the time, and I found a vet out of Texas that will work, you know, over Zoom, but with essential oils. So we started the whole essential oil protocol thing, and it started to make improvements, but it wasn't quite enough. But then I got my hands on that Phytospore, and oh man, he has, unless the significant other decides to break down and feed him some little piece of crap he's bought at his favorite fast food place, this boy has no more skin related issues at all. And he feels so much better. So let's talk about this product. And is it similar? Is it the same? You know, and is it good for all babies?
And it's just a great segue because we are talking about the diversity piece, and I know that you want to touch on it anyway. So this is, again, is the product. It's called Phytospore.
Yeah.
And there's a couple great things to bring up around this. Number one is that we completed a study in Romania, I think back in December, but it's been like in the last 6 months or so. And it was on dogs, and it showed that dogs have leaky gut as well.
Yeah.
No surprise. So you say, well, what the heck? Obviously, there's a lot of different fillers in animal food.
Yeah.
You get corn and soy and wheat. There's glyphosates, potentially.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you know, they get vaccinated. They're put on antibiotics. They're also sniffing around on the ground where there are pesticides and glyphosates. There's a lot happening to these guys.
And if we're not eating well and we're feeding them the crap that we eat, right?
That's a great point, actually. And then they're also out there eating stuff. So they sometimes will get into they'll get into rodents or trash or other dogs' stuff, you know. So, Karan has also been offering podcasts, which is really cool, about how how dogs are really good for the health of the microbiome of a family.
Oh yeah.
But what about the health of the dog's microbiome, all their bacterial world? And also dogs will, and all pets obviously will bring in microbes from outside in a healthy, good way on their nose and on their fur. And we're exchanging that.
Yes.
So when we kiss people or we hold, you know, touch a doorknob, there's that thing, but even just that intimacy, that's why this 6 feet apart thing, we all really have to do this, or we, you know, whatever your choice is, but it's smart to do it, but it doesn't allow that exchange. So pets are great for that.
Yeah.
But obviously this can show up in different things. So you're talking about the skin condition piece. There's dysbiosis, that's different gut issues, diarrhea, arthritis, but even behaviorally.
Right.
So if you ever get to check out Jeffrey Smith, who came to our symposium last year, he is a proponent for why non-GMO, why anti-pesticide.
Oh, it was amazing.
He's an amazing guy, and he's a great documentary called Genetic Roulette.
Yeah.
So check that out for people who haven't, but it ultimately breaks down how all of these different pesticides with farmers who have done, they've given their animal organic feed that's pesticide free, and they saw behavioral issues improve. And then they, you know, out of cost savings, had to go and buy the local whatever junk. And they even could see animals with diarrhea and things like that, but even their behavior could backslide. It's fascinating. So we want to take care of our loved ones because we love them, our critters. And yes, the answer is it can be applied for cats. I don't know if I could say every furry friend on the planet, but you know, we have 2 cats in our house, and here's one of them, my little sidekick Barley. But it can be applied for cats. My sister on the East Coast has a cat that has some kind of asthmatic thing, and you know, nothing's helping. So the cat's on prednisone. So I sent her a Phytospore. So I'm like, you know, let's take care. And then the sister of the 2 kitties has had some chronic urinary tract infections. Like, what's going on, right? So that's the guinea pig for the kitties. The ingredients are different. So it is a different ingredient deck. And also we add some natural, I think it's like beef flavoring or something to make it enticing for the pups. But it is highly, highly, I'm getting amazing feedback. And I told you I'd send you another testimonial on a local practitioner who had an adopted dog. Many years, there was a skin rash or like a lesion on the leg that would not improve no matter what she did holistically with vets. Yeah. And after 1 bottle of Phytospore, she sent us her testimonial, and it was like 80% improved. Yeah. It was amazing. So I'm going to send that to you too. But the reason why I also like to bring this up is because when I say we're big into science and research, we have many studies running, and this is just an example of one, which is a bit out of the box. But if you can also prove that you can improve leaky gut with dogs and cats, what about the animals that we consume? Right. What about cows and pigs and chicken? You know, like we have a huge food supply chain. So there's a whole other, I'm sure, bigger conversation at hand here. But the other thing is we have about, I don't know, a handful of other studies running. We will be looking at, typically it's Megaspore, but we will be looking at periodontal disease. We just completed one with Megaspore in dermatology that shows that the spores do help reduce acne and lesions and inflammation by about 50%. Yep. We have others that we're looking at with triglycerides and the effects of glyphosates on a child's microbiome. antibiotic-associated diarrhea with children.
Oh my
So we have
goodness.
a lot of really cool out-of-the-box things that will likely be shared soon.
Oh,
Or
I can
in the
hardly
future.
wait. That's
I
such
know.
good information, right?
It's
You guys, do you see why I love Microbiome Labs? And this woman is just
thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
I am so impressed with all of microbiome products, and I use them with every client. It's a requirement that when giving up gluten, that the gut trio is used to replace what gluten was doing for you, so that you don't end up creating more issues for yourself. For most, the only prebiotics that they're actually getting are from gluten. And that's just because your diet isn't that great. So eliminating the gluten, and you now have nothing feeding your microbiome, and it can get much worse. So just eliminating gluten isn't enough to support your health. But I think it's also important while you're here to talk about maybe some of the other products. And if we have a few minutes, because we're at about 15 minutes of the hour,
Yeah.
and we may run out of time and not have, because I think we both have hard stops here at 11, but we may take some of your questions that you can throw into the chat box, and we can definitely come back and answer those later. But so I think some of the products, and then maybe let's touch base on the BiomeFX a little bit too. Yeah.
This is why we could hang out all day.
I know, right?
Yeah. So I will touch on, and again, we have a few other products.
Oh, yeah.
We do have a few products, and again, maybe if I'm invited back, we could do a part 2 with some other goodies.
Yes.
We do have a product, just to mention to everyone, called Mega Mycobalance that is specific for candida and fungal issues.
That's amazing.
We have a product called Mega Guard, which is more upper GI for acid reflux, indigestion, heartburn, GERD, and then people who have bile production issues. And then we have another product called Restore Flora, which can help with a little bit of candida overgrowth or different types of diarrhea. So we have just a handful, and then 2 K2 products. And K2 is something that many people are just learning about, but it's a calcium transporter, and it decalcifies arteries and protects the heart and helps with respiratory function. So it'd be great to talk a little bit more with you at some point about K2, because there's also been some findings that some of the COVID cases had some lower levels of K2.
Wow.
And, because they're looking at it from the respiratory lung function piece. So we do have several other products, and then we have a full spectrum fish oil called Mega Omega. So that kind of rounds us out. So maybe part 2. Yes. But the wheat rescue, since you're talking about this, and this is such a big issue, we also had Dr. Tom O'Brien at our symposium, and I know you got to chat with him. Yeah. And Dr. Tom O'Brien is sort of the gluten celiac guru guy. We formulated this product, Wheat Rescue, with him. And what we've been sharing is that about 32% of the gluten-free products out there still contain measurable gluten, which of course there's cross-contamination issues. So if you're going to go to a restaurant, for instance, I mean, God bless, they're doing their best to make the gluten-free menu. Yeah. But gluten-free pastas and pizzas can be some of the bigger offenders. I am not gluten-free. I know I'm going to be doing some work with you. I really need to make some of my own hard kind of reset stuff. But I do take this now because I feel like there's 3 different categories of people where the wheat rescue can really be applicable. Number one, if you've gone gluten-free, yeah, and you go to a party, or you're out in the world, or like you're at a kid's soccer game and all they have is pizza there, right, or you're just not quite sure what you're eating, if there's exposure. What this product does is it has 2 of our spores, and it has Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a probiotic yeast, and it has enzymes. And that's great too, because as we age, we need more help with that. But you can take one of these up to 3 times a day, almost like a security blanket. So when in doubt, what it does is it helps break down gluten proteins called gliadin. That's what our body has a hard time breaking down and processing. And so for the people who are just out there in the world, they can keep this with them, and they're like, I'm not quite sure, they can always use it as sort of like their backup. Yeah. Now, the AMA, the American Medical Association, came up with a study years ago that did show that upon consuming gluten, even your average consumer, that's me, the person who's like, I don't have gluten issues, you can have almost immediate gut permeability when you consume it, which you would know. So I went, oh my gosh. And I started taking this whenever I do eat something bready, or if I do indulge in pizza or something, like I definitely take this product. And then there's the people who are celiac. They've had a lot of past damage. They never know when they're going to get exposed. Yep. They could take this more regularly and ongoing as that sort of security blanket. Yep. So Wheat Rescue is a newer product within this past year, I would say. Yep. Really awesome product, and it's a great thing to add into your arsenal for sure.
I think it's the best on the market in terms of helping people manage gluten. And when Dr. Tom was at the Quicksilver symposium that we had before COVID hit, he even said that the tests that they've done, even in gluten-free restaurants, there's contamination. So even if you're walking into a gluten-free restaurant, don't feel that you're safe.
Right.
And this product will, he said, I think from a test perspective, if you ate an entire piece of bread, it could help you break down that entire piece of bread. Like don't use it as a crutch, use it to keep yourself safe. And I believe he also mentioned that it could help break down corn if you've had a corn exposure, especially if you struggle with corn. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't get to sit in all of that because I was out in the hall working, but I appreciate you sharing that because that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So again, so many great things to say, but I will just jump very briefly and try and zip through BiomeFX, which is our, yes.
I love BiomeFX for so many reasons, and she's going to tell us, but I just want you to know. And yes, well, you don't have to say the word. I'll say it. It's a poop test.
That's funny. We can say all the words about it.
We can say all the words about it, but I have switched all of my microbiome tests right now, like that I've tried in the past. I have now converted. I only use this test. So let's hear all about it. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll try and zip through this quickly. Obviously there's a lot to say and I know I'm going off camera. BiomeFX, this is just to show you that the box looks like.
Yeah.
BiomeFX was launched, I think, back last fall, December. And first of all, our founder, Kiran, said, please tell people the why. He said, I didn't necessarily want to get or need to get into the testing world. It's an entirely different animal, very complex. And but he was concerned about the methodology of what was being used, how things were being applied, if systems were a bit antiquated, and also, how accurate were the results. Those were kind of his concerns. And so he said, well, instead of sitting on the sidelines and being concerned about this, if I can jump in and create a solution, I should do that.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of how this got launched. So the other piece is that when practitioners, if they order BiomeFX, they receive 4 kits for free, and not until they register patients are they then charged. So we put a very, I think that you would agree, we put a really nice price on it for things that are on the market. We didn't add an SRP to it because we're not trying to make extra bucks on it. It's truly just so we can have something that's a very viable resource for people with great testing and results. We had a version 1. We are now working on version 2, which I know you got really excited about, and I'm just getting trained on. So I think mid-August, end of August is our aim, but it may take longer, I don't know.
Yeah.
But ultimately we're adding many more functions to the test. So a couple of things that differentiate us, because there's a lot of testing on the market. We partner with Cosmos ID. They are the ones that manufacture, and then they receive the testing, and then they process the reports. They're very reputable in the marketplace. Also, we work off of whole genome sequencing versus 16S, which is what a lot of the methodology has been prior. Whole genome sequencing, a great analogy was given, 16S would be like if you were to see a picture of someone's ear, their foot, and their toe, or their knee, and you're like trying to figure out genetically who the heck is this person. It's a bit more limited. Whole genome sequencing has a much broader look at the person genetically. And then we do the coring method. So when people actually capture their stool sample, they take 10 to 12 points of the stool, because microbes and bacteria are not homogeneous on all different sides of the stool or inside the stool. So you don't want to take 1 or 2 parts of it and send that sample in. Let's capture as much information as we can. Yep. And then in addition to that, we will offer a call to action report. So when the report comes back and we look at different parasites and pathogens and viruses and things like that, we will also have in there lifestyle suggestions and then dietary suggestions that are much broader than eat organic fruits and vegetables. It goes into specifics. Yep. And then we will also be able to, we have a team, our clinical team has been expanding. So with version 2, we are going to have a website available. We do have consults available. People can set those up, the practitioners, and comb through the results. The second version coming, some of the things I heard we'll be adding, some features and functions. We'll be looking at H. pylori, candida, neurotransmitters, different hormones, if you're absorbing certain vitamins and nutrients. So from what I've been told, and I can see our clinical team, they have smoke coming out of their ears. They're just like, it's going to be unlike anything on the market.
Right.
So
and it is. And
the quick little version of it.
Some of the other things that are in the report that comes back are like key healthy things about your microbiome. So you're compared to a healthy person's microbiome. They also take a look at your keystone strains, which are the things that are crucial to the function of your microbiome. So there's a lot of different things that we're looking at. And it used to be that it didn't make sense for me to run a stool test based on the way the stool test was looked at and also treated. Because if we didn't heal the gut and do a lot of work to reduce the inflammation, it didn't make sense to go that route. You were just kind of wasting your money. This approach can happen along with everything else. So I really love this approach because it's a more proactive instead of a defensive kind of a response to your gut health, I feel.
That's a great way to put it. And thank you for that. And, you know, our clinical team, I have practitioners come to me and say, what would you do with this case or this circumstance or this particular protocol client? And you know, I do my very best to be able to offer knowledge and education around what I know. Obviously not diagnosing people, but saying, here's what we would provide, or here's what I suggest. But I will often go to clinical team and ask them for a deeper dive. And so if there's something that's more complex, I will send it their way. And what's really cool is they don't always say, oh, they have to take the stool test. But you know, there's always the best you can do with the information you're given, a person's history and what their surgeries, medications, symptoms, whatever. But there have been some cases that are highly complex, or maybe not even the most complex, where it's like, what you can also then do is you can use the BiomeFX to go deeper into that profile and figure some things out. And as you know, since you've been in testing and you appreciate it, I mean, obviously this is something that can unveil things. It could be like the missing link in some of the stories. Like that's one of that piece that was unveiled or revealed is imperative.
Yes.
Or it can also help people go back, you know, it could be testing prior or later on to see improvement.
Yeah.
But also we've seen this, and you've seen this, where it can help bypass, you know, or people who are going down a path of inflammatory chronic dis-ease.
Yeah.
It can really help people not have to get to that space where they're suffering later on.
Right.
You can sort of curtail that.
Yes, exactly. And we have literally less than 3 minutes. So we have to come back and do more, I feel. I just peeked at the Facebook page and there's some stuff in there. So they're looking for information on products. I'll follow up with you on that. And we could literally geek out all day talking about this stuff. Oh, we could.
I know.
But what I do want to say is if you are interested in these products, and there is some stuff on the Facebook page and I'll follow up, but you can get access to them through me. So if you do want to know, like touch base and put some comments on the Facebook page, or you can email me directly at clientcare@yourhealthmadesimple.com and we can work through that. Because like she said earlier, there isn't a direct buy, it's through practitioners. I think we covered so much. Like I hope everybody is so happy.
I know you said, here's my wish list. And I was like, I'm going to go for it. I hope I cram it in. I think that we covered the majority of what we wanted to today. And then certainly, as you mentioned too, if there's any other practitioners that happen to be listening, or anybody who's in the health world who would love to set up an account with us, Tracy will pass on my information. And it's very easy steps, and I can walk you through it or help you. And we can always get something going. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Number one, I haven't seen your face in too long.
I know.
You're so bizarre. And but I am glad to be able to pass on the information. And I just want to mostly be an advocate to remind people that the gut health piece is such a huge cornerstone. It's sort of at the core of, obviously they call it our second brain, of what's going on, but also the link to immunity. And you know, as we navigate through this emerging new world and what's to come, which we don't know, as Karan was saying, what we learn now is really important. It's like a dress rehearsal for bigger things that may come in our future. So what we learn now, what we take with us into the future is just very, very important stuff.
It really is important stuff. And, you know, it is really all about getting yourself healthier to tackle what's coming at you. And this is the place to start. So, Well, it's been fabulous. I will be in touch because I have a feeling people are going to be like, oh man, we need some more. So we'll have to set up another time and we'll keep everybody posted.
This is fun for me. So thank you so much for my break from emails and other things in life, and for all the work that you do. I can't wait to work with you too. With the books. And for everybody out there, thank you for joining. And I hope that we were able to make some impact today.
Absolutely. We'll talk to everybody later. Thanks again, Robyn.
Thanks, Tracy. Have a good one.
Bye.